everyone. This is Chris again with another episode of the Caffeinated Contractor. And today I've got a guest who does not need any introduction because she's been on the show twice already. Jodi from Elizabeth Erin Designs. I was thinking about your little Erin there.
My little Erin right here.
Little guest. Little Erin is joining us today.
A little surprise guest, and actually it kind of ties in because I have a little surprise guest because his mom and dad are working on getting all new floors, and it's not safe for him to be there while they're going through their renovation.
Awesome. Well, that's perfect because today we're going to talk about when should you consider using an interior designer for your remodel. So we're going to talk about that today, about what an interior designer can do for you, how you work with an interior designer, and then, wherever the conversation goes from there. So let's talk first about what does an interior designer do for people?
Yeah. So interior designers, what they should do, because it's all dependent upon, the client and what their goals are and how they want to operate. So I feel like, if clients want to protect their budget and work on having all of the documents to make sure that they stay on budget, then working with an interior designer is the best way to go. If they are working with, if they're just wanting help just making selections, you can do that too. But I feel like if you want to make sure that your budget's maintained and protected, then working with the designer is actually the best.
So what kind of things do you do to help somebody stay within their budget?
Sure. So we start with,
little theme music.
My little buddy's being distracting with his little car thing. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
What we do is we put all of the design elements together in documentations to help with the communication between the designer and the contractor. Because, right, you're a contractor. When you go to somebody's house, what are they going to ask you? How much is it to remodel my kitchen? How much is it to do this? And you're not basing the number on actual facts of what the design is going to be. You're pulling out a range, not to diminish what you're doing, but you based off of your experience, how much it costs to do projects like this in the past, but it's not based on what the client actually wants, right? It's not based on, they want wallpaper. They really want, this really nice lighting. They want upgraded package for, appliances. It's not based on what they want. It's based off of average numbers. And I feel like that's what gets lost in communication. And so we create the documents that bridge that gap. So do you want me to talk a little bit about the process of how we get engaged? Okay. Yeah. So what happens is either the contractor is going to give us the client, or the client is going to find us, organically. And the steps are basically the same. We're going to do I call it a discovery call now, and it's anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour long, and it's complimentary. We'll meet with the client. We discover, what their project is, what it's all going to entail, and how they might want us involved. And some people don't know how they want us involved. So that's why I created a little presentation to show them everything we can do. Like, we can do 3D renderings and walkthroughs. They can see a video, and we can navigate them through their space to show them what it's going to be like if we take that wall down. Mm-hmm. Or we can just do renderings, or we can do X, Y, and Z. But then I understand the scope of the project, and I'm only bidding out what they want and what they don't want. And then we're just going to create a flat fee package just for them, customized based off of our conversation in the discovery call. These are the things they want and need, and this is the fee to have us work with them on those wants and needs. And then we can tweak it from there. So once that's all decided on, we're going to schedule an exploratory meeting. So they've signed the contract, deposit, yada, yada. We're going to do an exploratory meeting. Now, our design firm works as a group on every project, but with one group, there can only be one queen, right? One queen bee in a hive. So one person, one designer is assigned to be that leader, that lead designer for that project, right?
Okay.
So let's say it's a project in Iowa. Well, I actually have boots on the ground, somebody in Iowa that can be that lead designer. If it's like in Houston, Texas, where you are, it would probably be me or Ashton. Somebody's got to be the main point of contact, but we'll work together as a group. So then after all the things are done, somebody will meet with the client on site. We have to measure. We have to measure not only the space, but if there's any existing furniture they want to keep in the space, we have to work that into the plan to make sure everything fits properly together, like a little puzzle piece.
Sure.
And then once we get all of that together, we're going to talk about the budget. We're going to talk about the design and what's important to the client and what's not. And we'll look at some inspirational images and just kind of talk through everything so that we have a good idea on what's important to the client and how they want to utilize each space, because that's really, really important. Otherwise, you're just designing a pretty space that is not really going to function, right? So once we get all that done, then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that floor plan. And then we won't go any further with the client until the client selects a contractor. So whether you give us a client or the client finds us and we're going to recommend you, once we get to the agreed upon floor plan, that's when we stop the design and say, we have to have a contractor. And this is something new that we implemented because we found that if people don't have a contractor set up, all the stuff we're selecting and doing is based on who we've used in the past that we know gives great pricing and great service. And then what happens is when they pick their contractor, that contractor wants to use a different flooring place. They don't want to use that, that countertop, or they have different cabinet people they use. So then what happens is we've got to go redesign, and then the blue cabinet that you picked out for the client is not available in that blue. So then you got to start all over with a new blue that might impact the rest of the design, the colors, and everything else that you selected. So we engage the contractor. Yeah.
Sorry. So for example, when you're going through that process, right, and you're talking about the budget and you engage the contractor and those changes happen, is that part of the initial package price where
yes,
there's going to be revisions?
Yep. Okay. Yep. So we'll do 3 sets of revisions on the plan. And then sometimes we need to get a contractor involved right away. If it's removing walls, we need an engineer and a contractor right away to say what's possible, because as interior designers, we are not certified to make that call. Right. So we need to set up the team. It's like, if you're a football team or a basketball team or whatever team that you're putting together, if you're running a business, you want to make sure, smart business people, make sure that everything is covered. What positions do you need open? And do you have 1 or 2 people that can take on that position? So this is just putting your design team together to make sure that your vision is achieved on your budget and that you're putting your money where it's spent. Because 77% of everybody doing a remodel or new construction is going over budget by 28%. That's a lot of cash. So that can be a lot going on. Do you want up? Huh? Yeah, up. So it gets to be a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I'd rather make sure that you're working off of tangible designs than just pulling stuff out of thin air, not seeing a whole vision come to fruition. Is that what we did for Mommy and Daddy's house?
Really?
Yeah, that's what we did, right? We put together a plan. Right? So then that's how they knew. Exactly. We came up with the idea. They have a washer and dryer in the lower level in their kitchen. And it really would be helpful with, little Peanut here to have the laundry upstairs. That's where the bedrooms are. But it came back that it was going to be over budget to get plumbing and everything up there. So then they just decided just to do paint, trim, doors, and flooring. And they were able to allocate their budget to what was important to them, as well as resale. Exactly. So, but without doing it, if they were just gonna, wing it, then they could have been partway into this realizing, oh my gosh, now we've already put everything together and moved it all up, and now it's really expensive. So now we're gonna have to go with less expensive, paint. We're gonna have to go with less expensive flooring. We're gonna have to do all the things, and then it would have been too late at that point.
Exactly. Let me ask you this. Let me throw a scenario at you. This happened not too long ago, where we have we're working with somebody. They called us in and say, "Hey, we want to do this huge remodel. We want to do a new addition." I think I may have talked to you about this a couple of weeks ago. But there's no design. but they're working with a bank, and the bank says, hey, we need to know how much it's going to cost. So they're like pressuring everyone to get estimates in.
Sure.
So we're throwing an estimate out based on an idea of maybe this is what you want, and I kept communicating, hey, don't hold us to this number, because we're not building to plans here. We need plans to actually bid against. And that way the numbers is a little bit more, we have confidence in that number. I feel like that is backwards of how things should have happened. In your opinion, how do we approach something like that? If someone's working with a bank and they're pushing for estimates, should they get a designer involved initially, maybe out of pocket cost first, so they can get those plans and go from there?
I mean, if they want to say the headache down the road, it's like I'm going to play the game before I know if I have all the players involved. And this is the way the construction industry has been for years and years and years. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But there is a better way to do this. If you're just going to pull a number out of the air and say yes, but then put in like a 15 to 20% contingency, I mean, that's no way to run it, because then you don't know if you can say yes to those things versus saying no to those things and putting the money where you want to put it. So yes, engaging somebody out of pocket. I'm actually working with a company called Beachwork out of Florida, and they are a franchise for a co-networking space. It's a really different space. It's you can go by the week, the month, the day, or the year, whatever. But anyways, they're nationwide as well, franchising. And so we were talking about doing some like a design package for me to fly wherever we were going to go, and then do a measure and get the design done, and at least agree on a floor plan. Like, how do they want to utilize the space? So that way the contract has something to go off of, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, it might not be everything, but it was something to at least start with.
Yeah. And just kind of speaking on the contractor side, if we're going into a remodel, if it's like same layout, okay, that's a little easy, right? But if it's changing things around, we kind of need to have some drawings. We need to know an idea what the client wants, with some like ideas of, what kind of cabinets, countertops, and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Or else,
you're just flying blind. You're flying with blinders on. You're not setting yourself or your clients up for success, which is why I am very passionate about the way we do it. And I just don't preach this to people. I actually lived it. Like, I went through it through the building process. And that's when I had that light bulb moment and said, oh my gosh, like, there has got to be a better way to do this. This just doesn't seem right. But yes, there is, you can get a bid out to go ahead and like have somebody put together plans. And then with the plans, you can figure it out. So like, one of my clients in Sandestin was working on a project, and they wanted to know how much it was going to be to take down 2 walls. Was it going to be $40,000 to put the beam in? Was it going to be $10,000? Because if it was $10,000, they could probably still feasibly do the rest of the remodel and not have to go so far over budget. But with it being $40,000, that they were like, then we'll just live with the kitchen the way it is, and we'll just do minimal remodeling. So in order to figure that out, we had to do the plans and then send them to the engineer and get with the contractor, and then we made the decision that it was okay to go ahead and take those down.
Exactly.
So, and that's how we were able to move forward. But you're 100% spot on, absolutely right.
So the question that I had earlier, I guess we just answered, is, how soon should someone engage with a designer? The answer is,
I feel like
very beginning.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it really works best that way. We've gotten involved like part way through. Like, I've had clients say, okay, they interview us. We go through that discovery phone call, and through the discovery, they say, I really enjoy the whole process of designing, and I have some time, so I'm willing to do that. I'd rather utilize your services for selecting all the furniture and things like that. And I said, no problem. If anything comes up during the, your new construction or remodel, give us a shout out. And one of my clients called me when she was partway through the build, just like in tears. And I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I need your help. We picked the paint color. I picked white. And I went outside to check on something, and I came back in. We have 4 little girls under the age of 6, and there's black marks all over the wall, like yay high. And there's nothing I can do that takes it off. It's taking the paint off. And I'm like, oh, in my heart, I already knew what happened. And this was with a custom builder for an $800,000 home. And this was 5 years ago. So that's like what, 1.2, 1.3 now.
Yeah.
And I knew what had happened, but I needed her to confirm it. I'm like, just do me a favor, go to the basement. Cause in Iowa, we have basements. I think in Texas, not so much, right?
No.
Neither in Florida, but she went to the lower level, and that's where, the storage area was. I said, check your paint can. And she was reading off the color. She's like, yep, this is the right color. And I'm like, what's the finish? And she's like, they use flat paint. A custom builder used flat paint. It was part of their standard package. But if you're not doing this every day, you don't know. Do you know what I mean? They knew she had 4 little kids under the age of 6. Nobody there thought, because this is what they do every day. I'm not putting them at fault, but like nobody thought about the family that was going to be living there and how it functions. So she ended up paying $10,000 to repaint the house in eggshell.
Wow.
I'm like, for $10,000, that could have gone towards the design fee, and I could have designed your entire house. And saved you all of this time that you've been working on your house for 4 or 5 months.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just it's just such a costly mistake that doesn't need to happen. And that's not a remote incident. Like, I hear things like that all the time, every day. And that takes the client experience down. Like, she's like, I won't build with that builder again. Like, I feel like they didn't have my back.
Yeah. So so we just talked about the process at the beginning for the initial design, drawings and things like that. What about the selection process? What does that look like?
Sure. So once we get the agreed upon floor plan and we get a contractor ready to go, then what we do is we talk to the contractor. We're like, say, okay, we're going to start making selections. This is the project scope. Where do you want us to select cabinets from? Where do you want us to select all these things from? They'll provide us a list. We'll work off that list and their people that they want to work with, because, you're building relationships, and you trust them with the quality, you trust them with certain things. And when you have to use somebody new, things always it's like throwing a monkey wrench in. Like, it's like throwing an audible when your key player gets hurt and you throw in somebody else into the game, right? It doesn't always flow sometimes. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But who wants to do that in the middle of a project? So we'll work with their list. We'll start making the design selections. We'll start ordering in samples, making sure everything goes together. Our design team, we kind of go quiet for like 3 to 4 weeks. We're pulling all the samples. And of course, that depends on how large the project is. We're pulling all the samples. We're doing all the things, going over everything, making sure I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and actually doing the design work. And then what I like to tell clients is we're like 65% of the way to the design when we show you the first time.
Okay.
Right? So just to set expectations. And then we show them the first time. And we utilize a Dropbox system. So they're going to get the design, and they're also going to get a link to a video with their designer saying why she chose what she chose and to put things where. Nice. Why did we choose this color? So they understand the why behind it. Okay. So they get the Dropbox links and the videos with the why on like a Friday. And then maybe we're meeting the following Wednesday. Right. Yeah. And so we'll meet that Wednesday. And then by then they've viewed everything, hopefully, so that we can have a really good conversation about what they liked and what they didn't like. Okay. So now we're going to go into the first set of revisions. So they're going to give us a set of revisions by a certain date, agreed upon date. We do those revisions. We do the same process with the Dropbox and the video. And then we're going to meet again. And by this time, we're like 75 to 80% of the way to the design. And then we're going to do it one more time. So they'll see the design 3 times. The second time, we're like 75 to 80. And then the second time, we're like 80 to like hopefully 90. Sometimes we get lucky 95% of the way there. And then that's when we say stop. Then we're going to create a couple other documents used by the contractor to obtain the accurate bids. It's a very detailed list, a spreadsheet of every single item used, quantity, grout, color, installation information, everything that you can possibly imagine. So that's all going to be done and sent over to the contractor. The contractor is going to pull bids because they're going to have our measurements, which makes the job easier. They're going to say, here's the floor plan. Here's what I need you to bid out for the client. And so you can get those bids back much quicker than having to send the sub to the house without, a lot of installation or information. We're going to go ahead and get the bids back. Then the contractor and you and I are going to have a conversation with our team saying, okay, the client's budget was like $150,000. We came in at maybe $200,000. Okay. Where do we see opportunities to cut back and get them closer to their $200,000 budget? or $150,000 budget. And so we're going to have those conversations. Did we pick a tile that's installed in a crazy pattern that's adding to the labor? Did we pick this, or are we mid-price, spot on with everything? Then we meet with the client and say, okay, here's where your budget's coming in at. Here's where we're at. Here's opportunities that we can maybe cut down, or sometimes it's add on because it's less than what the client's budget is. Yeah. So we go over all of that together as a team, contractor, designer, and client. And they're like, okay, I want to take this out. I want to do this, and we're good to go. And then we do the final set of revisions and we're good to go, and we send them off, and then you're ready to sign contracts and do all the things with the client. And then we're still available for questions as you come up, especially on a remodel. You never know what you're going to find when you open up walls, right? Exactly. So we're always still available, and that's all part of that design package fee. We know that there's going to be questions after the fact. We might be done and paid for like at that point. But if there's questions, we're going to offer that support because we want to be there along the way, making sure that if a tile we selected got discontinued, we're going to have to pick another one, and we want to make sure it goes with the paint color and all of the things to make sure we're not compromising the design.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So from the first meeting that you all meet, the discovery call, to the time, let's just say they're pretty quick on making decisions. Okay.
Yeah.
That scenario. What would you say the average time from that first meeting to when you have the design and the contractors out getting bids?
Sure. So I'm going to go through real quick timelines from the beginning because I think that will be helpful.
Perfect.
Usually from the time somebody signs a contract with us, it's within the next week or week and a half that we're having that exploratory meeting where we're getting measurements. Okay. And then it's another full week till they get those floor plans to look at, and then however many revisions we need to take on that. When we plan a project, we plan the revisions out. They're already in the schedule. So as soon as we meet, the revisions usually happen the next day or the day after. And then it just depends on how many times we have to make revisions and to what extent. So typically what we see is a week and a half till you have the first design, and then it's maybe a few tweaks. There's not too many that need to be made. Good enough to say, okay, let's get working on this plan. It's probably about another 2.5 weeks total from the signing of the contract to the approving of the plans. And then we have to get the contractor involved. If they already have a contractor, great, things can progress quickly. If they don't, we need that contractor by then so that we can get the vendors to start sourcing from. So it depends on that. And then once we get the vendors to source from the time they see the first design, it can be anywhere between 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks, depending upon the size of the project.
Okay.
And then it's probably another week for the first set of revisions, another week for the second set of revisions, and then you're able to bid. So probably about a month and a half, 2 months total to the time, I would say, to get the bids. So that's why it works really good, because contractors are constantly meeting people. And if they're serious and they're, vetted clients, it takes us 2 months to do a design. And then you're able to bid and sign contracts and get going probably 2 to 3 weeks later once we get the final set of whatever. So you're talking about 3-month design process.
Okay.
Before your pipeline, because then you can sign and go. And then we've already been working on the next client, sign and go.
Yeah. And for us as a contractor, so I'm counting 7 to 8 weeks for your process here. If the contractor is involved ahead of time, just thinking from our perspective, then while this whole process is going on, we have a general idea of what needs to be done, and we can start putting together our subcontractor team, and then we can start talking to them. Like we're having a meeting next week with a group to talk about a home build we're doing in Tomball, Texas. And what we're doing is the plans are not completely finalized yet, but we're going to get together and we're going to start talking about the plumbing, the electrical, how things should go on a schedule. So there's a lot of planning on our end too, that if we're involved at the beginning, we can have those planning meetings ahead of time. That way, when it's time to pull permits and swing hammers, we're ready to go.
Yes. Yep. You'll know because the plan will be done.
Exactly.
The plan will be pretty much finalized.
Right.
And we'll already know it, like with my one client, is it worth it to take those 2 walls down or is it not? So we'll already have that finalized plan. If it's too expensive and they don't want to do it, then we're going to keep the walls and we're just going to remodel what's there and not move things around.
Yeah.
So you'll know that. You'll know the scope.
Exactly.
You won't know 100% like every single detail about what color cabinet and all of that, but you'll have the general scope.
Right. And then with the wall scenario, if we were involved at the beginning, we can say, oh, let's just send our engineer in, take a quick look.
Yes.
That way you have your answer right away and you don't have to waste time on that planning.
Yep.
Excellent.
It's all about curating that team up front.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. For the budget, what percentage would you say is put towards contingency?
I've seen anywhere from 5% to 10%, depending upon what the contractor sees as far as potential red flags.
Sure. Got it. Okay.
As a rule of thumb.
Okay.
And clients are very well versed that there is the term contingency plan, because I had one of my clients were doing a remodel and she looked at the contractor because she ended up wanting to do a change order for one thing. And she's like, but don't we have some contingency money to play with? And she's like, yeah, that already got used up because of X, Y, and Z. So it was funny that with the internet being out there now, like people are very well versed and educated on things enough to be dangerous, I like to say.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about the contingency. What would you say are things that they would use that budget for?
Sure. So I've been involved in projects where there was a pantry closet and a refrigerator that was recessed next to it. And we were going to take that whole wall down completely and do a beam up in the ceiling and everything. And they're like, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Engineer's not a problem. When the contractor got into the wall, there was actually a heat run in the back of the pantry closet that was vertical from upstairs to the lower level. So we needed to have contingency money to reroute all of that HVAC. Okay,
that makes sense. So whenever you're opening up walls, pulling up floors, or digging into the ground, you don't know what's there because you can't see it from the beginning.
Right. Even on my own property, we had there was some some people had done some soil testing and found that there was a lot of clay in the soil. So we paid for a test to have it done, and we had to use contingency money to backfill dirt with the clay to make sure our house didn't slide off into the oblivion.
And that's a wise expense right there.
Yeah. Yep. And then,
problems.
Exactly. And I feel like that's a good conversation for contractors to have with clients too. If your clients are nervous Nellies, like I tend to be, I would rather have more money in the contingency and less in my, but allowance budget, I want to make sure I'm getting what I want. And then another conversation is to have is a lot of times contractors don't think to ask this, but are you getting new furniture and are you wanting new window treatments? Because we need to put that amount of money into a plan too, because a lot of people think that they're just going to have money left over. But then when they start working off of allowances, and which is why I don't like doing that, there's no money for furniture or window treatments. And you have this big, beautiful remodeled space and or new construction home, and your house poor, you've used everything to do all the finishes. You can't furnish it. So you're putting your old things in there. And then as a contractor, your images don't look so great online because, the furnishings don't match the house. Yeah. And the client's like frustrated because they really thought they were going to have money left over to get new furniture and window treatments. And it doesn't happen.
That's interesting.
When you bring in a design team, they're kind of like that sticky honey that like bridges the gap between the contractor and the client, and making all those visuals and making sure I's are dotted, T's are crossed. I think it's just like, I say we're like insurance really, to make sure that everything happens. Because if we are human, we're not, anything but. So when you have somebody who's implementing the designs that you created and you're creating the designs and pulling those images out of the client's mouths and ears and head to create that, you're going to catch things together as a team and make everybody shine and make sure the client has the best experience. When it's just one thing, like my client who had 4 kids under the age of 6, and then the contractor didn't even think to, oh my gosh, we should probably not use flat paint. We should probably tell them that's our standard. And maybe we should use eggshell, and eggshell is a $2,000 increase in the budget. We should probably have that conversation.
Yeah.
Don't always think about it when you're doing it every single day. You know what I mean? There's so many things we miss. So
does the process change? So we were talking kind of generally like huge full home remodel projects. Does the process change at all if they're just doing a kitchen or a bathroom, or is it about the same?
no, and I do want disclaimer because people probably have realized by now that it's super quiet in here. mommy picked up the visitor, so
okay, cool.
it's Gigi. Grandma is not ignoring, and no, he did not run away or escape anywhere. It's just really quiet. But no, it's the process is the exact same. I am very much an efficient person, and I only know when something works. I only know how to do it like. The efficiency part of it, like the process one way to give the client the best experience. So whether you're doing a kitchen, a bathroom, a suite, an entire house, a whole new construction, the whole thing is still the same no matter what. The only thing that changes is that initial discovery call that we're going to have to understand what your project scope is and how you want us involved. That's a customized thing. It's not a template. It's a customized design fee package just for you based off of the services you want and not giving you the services you don't.
Got it. That's a very good point. So I was talking to someone yesterday, in fact, about the importance of having a process. And a good company is going to have their process and they're going to follow it. And the reason why they're going to follow it is because it's efficient. And you can know that they went through it several times over and over again, and it's less likely things will going to get lost, right? But if you try to throw a wrench in it, try to change your process around just for one little thing, there's a chance for human error there, right? So following that process is extremely important. So if you're interviewing, if someone's listening or you're interviewing a designer, a contractor, or whatever, whoever you're going to work with, if they don't have a process down, that, in my opinion, should be a red flag.
That absolutely is. And that's why I put together the presentation we did, because a lot of times people haven't worked with a designer before. This is maybe their first bigger project, or they've worked with a designer before, but all designers work differently and not everyone provides the same service. So that's why when you said red flags, like there's different things to look for, and there's no real red flag for a designer. As the only red flag I would say, because everybody has a different skill set. There's designers out there that are really good at just, picking paint colors or doing furniture. But maybe you've been guilty of this, gone to a store to pick out furniture for your own home, and you've had them deliver it and the sofa's too big or it's too small. It doesn't fit in the space. So like if you've had that happen before, like you want to make sure your designer's doing a floor plan, right? Again, ducks in a row, do a floor plan to make sure everything's going to fit in properly. If you're doing a lot of work, you want to make sure, does your designer offer, an electrical plan? Like how is the electrical changes going to get communicated to the contractor so that they know and can provide the proper bidding? So I would say whatever you're wanting to do, you want to make sure you have all of the tools to be able to communicate your vision to the contractor to make sure that you're getting what you want.
Exactly. And I would say and this is what I tell people when they talk to contractors, is make sure they have a good track record. Like they've done the work before. And then there's a social media of them doing work in progress before and afters. There's reviews on Google. There's a website that they can point you to, and you can see that they're active on it, because all those things will give you confidence as a consumer that this designer is going to take good care of me, or this contractor is going to take good care of me. So if you don't see those things, I would really seek those out and whoever you work for, because when we're talking about a house renovation, whatever, this is a big investment. It's not an expense. So if you think of it as an expense, then you're going to just look for the cheapest route. If it's an investment, you're going to put money into it because you know this is going to be an investment into your social life, your future, the resale of your house, or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think our friend Stoy Hall would probably agree with that. I haven't asked him. I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I'm pretty sure he would agree with that.
I'm pretty sure. And he's gone through my process before too. So we're actually in the middle of it. So
awesome. Well, cool. Well, sweet. We talked a lot today about the process of the pre-planning process putting the plans together, and then we talk about the process of doing the selections and things like that, working with a contractor. Is there anything that we missed that maybe it might be good information?
I would just say, don't get hung up on the style. Okay. So I've had a couple people say, what you show online or what is online is beautiful. It's just not me. Any designer that can only do one thing, like I say, we're not just strictly Joanna Gaines. We don't do farmhouse and shiplap. Any good designer should be able to show versatility, and that versatility should show no matter what you want or what the style of the home lends itself to, the designer is going to be able to pull off. It's just maybe that they haven't had that type of a client that's wanted what you've wanted before. Because I feel like a lot of people, they always ask me, do you do coastal? Do you do this? And I'm like, we'll do whatever. I mean, we're good designers. We've been in business for 21 years and plus now. So, I mean, we will do whatever that the style and the client is aiming to achieve. We're going to make sure your vision's achieved, not ours. We're just going to, and I always ask people too, because when people are, well, in my house now, I've got this. And in my house now, I've got this. And I'm like, okay, so are we just building your house again that you're in now? Or do you want me to push you out of the box? They're like, no, push me out of the box. I'm like, because people only know what they know, right?
Right.
And so that's our job to say, like, how comfortable are you, being pushed out? Or can you imagine like something like this? Can you imagine doing, cortisone oak ceiling? Like, could you imagine doing something really cool on the ceiling? Could you imagine doing a really fun textured, wall or anything like that? So just like, how far out of the box do you want it pushed, or do you just want to copy and paste?
Right. It's interesting. You say all this. I was working with someone recently, and they were saying that they found a designer that they were working with, and they just were very unhappy because the designer was saying, you should do this, you should do that. And the lady's like, but I don't want any of those things. It felt like she was designing her own kitchen in my house. And that's not what you want.
Yeah, that would be a red flag.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had a client call me, and she's like, she was just asking me a million great questions, which was fabulous. And she goes, I go, have you worked with a designer before? She goes, yes, I have. And I said, how did it go? And she's like, well, I got her because I loved what she did to my neighbor's house. And, we started working, and I was like, yeah, that looks great. Yeah, that looks great. Let's do that. Sure. And like, she was showing me stuff, and I was getting excited. And she goes, then when it's all done, I went over to my neighbor's house, and my neighbor's house is my house. And now, like, when I go to sell my house, like, if they go up for sale around the same time, it's just competing. Like, it didn't feel like there was anything different. Or I had a contractor say, I partnered with one designer, and we were meeting with a client. She brought all the samples the designer did and showed them to the client. It looked beautiful. The next day we had another meeting with a different client, and this is a custom remodeler. She brought all the same stuff, the same cabinet, the same countertop, same backsplash. And I'm like, she's like, that was the last time I used her, because if you're just going to bring the same thing, all my houses are going to look the same, except for they're going to be a different shape. Like, I don't know what some people are thinking, but that would be another red flag. Like, you don't want everything to look the same, which is why my website is curated to show versatility.
Nice. I was just thinking of another question. So we're back to, if we were to just focus, let's say they just want to do a kitchen, do you take into consideration the surrounding rooms and what that looks like? So there's some kind of uniformity?
You have to. It can't look, well, unless they're like, in about another year, we're going to be redoing this or getting new furniture. So I call it like a timeless design. You want it to look good now, but you want it to look good 3-5 years from now. So we'll try and do a timeless design. And then I walk people through it. I'm like, you don't really need to have a backsplash right now. If that's going to be fun and just throw everything that's going on in the other room into shambles, like just wait, or just do a white subway tile, because a lot of people don't realize that 4-inch backsplash that people put in sometimes, you can get an inexpensive dowel tile, beautiful dowel tile, white subway for the same price as that 4-inch, because they mark that piece up so much when they're cutting it, it breaks. So they mark it up so much that most times you can just get a nice white subway tile. If you don't know what you're doing, just in replace of that, if you don't know what to do in the kitchen.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice.
It does. Well, excellent, Jodi. This is another informative episode. I think we should do another one that is focused on commercial, because we're doing a couple of commercial stuff. After we're done recording here, I want to talk to you about this other thing we got going on. But I think that's going to be something that we can do in the future together. Let's just talk about commercial design, how that works when somebody wants to open up their own business and their own storefront, and how would they work with a designer for that. So I think that would be a good episode too.
Yep, that would be fun. And multifamily. That's a whole multifamily could be people, investors, because now that things are changing a little bit, people are investing a little bit more. I see that picking up, at least in Florida.
And that's great news, because our start with Elevation Construction was purely multifamily, just renovating apartment complexes. And honestly, I remember the design process when we were going through that was we got together with the homeowner and like, okay, let's look at floor and decor. What kind of, what's available? Oh, let's do this. What's popular in paint? Oh, it's this and that. And it seemed like we did that copy and paste hundreds of times, which was fine. It was easy for us. But after a while, it's like, this is a little boring. Let's mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, there's some ways. Well, and then it's just like, how do you get that property to stand out? So that's a whole nother animal. But real quick, my whole thing with multifamily is you want to be able to curate a portfolio, especially if you're not the only investor, if you're having investors invest in you and your projects, to curate a portfolio so that you have something to show them. Also, when people are looking online and comparing, because we're all visual, right? Like we want to see it. You see it online first before you go in person. It's got to intrigue you. If it's copy and paste and it looks the same, then why do I choose that one over that one? Other than like location. So there's different things you can do on a budget to make it still stand out and be wow, but not increase your budget any, and that you'll get the quality renters that you're looking for. But again, that's a whole nother
topic. I was going to say, we got 2 more episodes we got to do here, because just with that statement, I got several questions. So we'll do a multifamily one, and then we'll do a commercial one. I think that'd be very beneficial. So, all right. Well, any parting words from today's episode?
If people want to reach out and learn more about the EED process or about Elizabeth Erin Designs, you can go to elizabetherrindesigns.com. There's a tab that says EED process, how we protect your budget. There is also all the social media you can follow us on to get good tips, all sorts of stuff our marketing team works on. So that's great. And stay tuned, because I'm starting my own podcast, which will be so much fun to have you on. It's got a little bit of a different take on it.
Nice. So, do you have a name yet?
I do. You want me to tease it out?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. It's
called Designing in 5D. So in 5D. So there's spiritually 5D. And there's, the five levels of where we're going. There's also the 5 dimensions of design. So the first part is the discovery call. Then we're going to do the more exploratory call, and where we're sitting down and having communication. Then it's more sensory, and then it's good communication and customer service. And then it's transcend. It's what goes above and beyond the best customer service you can provide. So talking about how all of that works together to elevate everybody, to elevate humanity.
Yeah. Awesome.
Because we're not just creating these spaces right now. People move, and you want to create a space that's going to be enjoyable for years and years to come.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. I love it. There's a lot of vision behind that. So that's cool.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. That's great. And so, if anyone is interested in Elizabeth Erin Designs, check out her website. Pretty soon we're going to have a link to her website. Actually, you're already linked on our website. Just go to the podcast episodes on elevationconstructionteam.com, and she's linked up there. But thanks again, Jodi. I appreciate the time, and don't go anywhere just yet.
Thank you and I'm going to say thank you for Aaron. Aaron, this is his first podcast debut.
Excellent. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. And don't forget, subscribe on YouTube and like it on all the other podcast, platforms that you listen on. Thanks again.
Oh, and one other thing. Do you have, if people want a topic that they want us to talk about or you to talk about, where can they go to let you know about that? So we're talking about things they want to know.
Excellent. Yeah. So if there's a topic that someone wants to talk about or wants us to kind of go over, I would just email info@elevationconstructionteam.com. And I'll get that email myself and my assistant, and then we can share that with Jodi, and we'll talk about it. Excellent.
Amazing.
Good idea.
Yay.
All right, cool. Well, thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye.